Hi everyone. Today is Sunday, January 10th, 2016, and I came across these two articles about Pope Francis and about his latest book that will be released this week called The Name of God is Mercy, I believe. This first article speaks of how in his book he reveals that he's a sinner and in need of God's mercy. This is not a surprise, considering that he's human. But the thing is, it's surprising in terms of Roman Catholic theology, because this Pope claims to be infallible. Infallible means he doesn't make mistakes, and hence doesn't sin. But the thing is, admitting he's a sinner, he admits he's fallible. So he brings confusion into the mix, into his own Catholic theology. But the important, and this other article, speaking also about his new book, but the Telegraph points to something important he says in his book, which is, I could have been in jail if I wasn't pontiff. And he describes here, keep in mind that Pope Francis here is showing a Masonic hidden symbol. So, yes, he's a sinner, but it's more, significant when he shows this Masonic hand signal. And these are other people, an example of the hidden hand, Masonic hand signal throughout history. Here at a Skull and Bones year photo in around the mid-1800s, here's someone using that hidden hand in the jacket as a sign of he's a Mason. It's also been used throughout history in Soviet Union due to the Gulag camps. The commandants had a hidden hand signal, and they show it off in front of the camera. Here's another, communist who again shows off the hidden hand signal. Again, here's Stalin, sorry. And here's Lenin with a hidden hand signal. And Trotsky, all the major communists with the hidden hand. And not only communists, but also other type of people as well. Nietzsche, the philosopher. John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Just many different types of people use this. Civil War era generals, and also a cardinal, Giacomo Antonelli, a cardinal and secretary of the Papal States under Pope Pius IX. He was, an important part of the plot to assassinate Lincoln during that time, and he also shows off the hidden hand signal. So again, when Pope Francis shows this, he shows his true colors, basically. But back to the fact that he admits he's a sinner. In Hebrews 7, 24 to 27, it admits that only Jesus Christ can be the high priest, and he can only, and after his death and resurrection, all priesthoods became invalid because no longer needed, because at the cross Jesus Christ became not only the Lamb that died for the world, died for the sins of the world, but also he became the high priest who now in heaven hears the prayers of all those who pray to him. So again, but this man, because he continueth ever, have an unchangeable priesthood. Wherefore he is able to save them to the uttermost that came unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. For such an high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made higher than the heavens. This is all Jesus Christ, who needeth not daily, as those high priests, to offer up sacrifice. Keep in mind that Mass, the Roman Catholic Church does a daily sacrifice of the body and blood of Christ, even though Jesus Christ was already resurrected. So first for his own sins, that's what a priest does when he, at the beginning of the Mass, he first breaks the bread and eats it himself, and then for the people's, he gives it to the people. But it's saying this in the context that only Jesus Christ, he did this once, so the priests don't need to do that anymore. When he offered up himself, so when Jesus Christ offered up himself on the cross, there's no longer needed a priesthood, because Jesus Christ fulfills that role now. A sign of this is, another sign of this is when in the Bible it says when he died, the veil of the temple was ripped from top to bottom, signifying that was the end of the human temple ministry and the beginning of the heavenly temple ministry of Jesus Christ. So all this brings to mind several things about Pope Francis. If you were not aware, there are many people within the church that believe that Pope Francis is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. In this article by the Catholic Herald in the UK, Why Popes Don't Always Get What They Want, it says here, I argued in my last column, I argued that it would be foolish to ignore the signs that Pope Francis has been giving for almost 2 years concerning the admission of the divorce and civility of remarried to the Holy Communion. Furthermore, after the synod of the bishops, which happened recently, his close advisors have made clear their expectation that the Holy Father, keep in mind this is a blasphemous term, there's only one Father in heaven. And Jesus Christ says in Matthew 23 that call no spiritual person or advisor a father. But continuing on, will change the traditional practice. So they expect that Pope Francis was going to make changes to the traditions of the Church, in contradiction to the clear teaching of Saint John Paul II and Benedict XVI. And because of these changes to the traditions of the Church, there are many within the Roman Catholic Church that are seeking to depose Francis. Here in the Remnant, can the Church depose a heretical Pope? And they are reviewing church history in order to find a way to remove Francis from office, because again, not many within the church, many conservatives within the church agree with the direction in which Pope Francis wants to take the Roman Catholic Church. Here's another article. Can a pope be a heretic? And they want to remove Pope Francis from office. But this in itself is significant of Bible prophecy. And how, you may ask, how does this relate to the Bible? Does the Bible speak of this in the end times? And if you read 2 Thessalonians 2:3-8, it tells you what is exactly happening today. we're living in the end times before the second coming of Jesus Christ. Keep this in mind. So again, here in verse 3 it says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." Okay, so this man of sin, the son of perdition, is an actual man. It is not the devil or anything like that. So this man of sin, of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So this whole verse here explains what the Pope is in essence. The Pope proclaiming himself to be a holy father, he sets himself up as a god on earth. And this in itself is blasphemy in the eyes of God. So, continuing on, "Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things." Okay? "And know ye now ye know that what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time." Okay? "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work." Okay? So he's saying here that he might be revealed in his time. This in itself was this two fulfillments. One, the first fulfillment was the actual Roman Catholic Pope, the little horn from Daniel 7 and 8. And this mystery of iniquity refers to the Roman Empire. That from the Roman Empire will surge this little horn, which was the Pope. The little horn referring to the small space from which the Pope controls the world, which is the Vatican. Okay? "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who now letteth will let." So, and now this itself has a significance in these end times, and until he be taken out of the way. So, once an individual is taken out of the way, then shall that wicked be revealed, that wicked being this man of sin and perdition, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So all this refers to what's happening today in the papal situation. So this wicked, this son of perdition, is found in the book of Revelation, verses 9 through 11. It explains further what was explained here by Paul. Okay? And it says here, "And here is the mind which have wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. This woman is dressed in purple and scarlet." Here, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet are the colors of the church. Purple represent the bishops, and scarlet are the cardinals. Continuing on forward. "And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th. So this beast here refers to a person, a man. "He is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition." So this perdition matches up with the son of perdition here. So this refers to the last pope who will be alive at the second coming of Jesus Christ. Okay? And this pope, this 8th, is still alive today. So now, explaining all this, you have to keep in mind several things about the Bible. So, here it says, "Here is the mind which have wisdom." Okay? This phrase is also found in Revelation 13. Where it says here is wisdom. "Let him all that have understanding count the number of the beast, For it is the number of a man, and his number is 600. It says here, let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And this wisdom here is wisdom, matches up with the here is wisdom from Revelation 17. So this Revelation 17 here, Revelation 17 verse 9. Here's the mind that hath wisdom. So what's said here matches up with what is said in some way or some form with there in Revelation 13 with the number 666. So, and if you go to 66man.net, they have this great Bible study that explains such the connection between those two verses. So between the number 666 and the papal numbers. So first, in order to understand this, you have to know one of the basic parts of Bible prophecy, which is said in Daniel. So let me just go here. Okay. Let me just go back here. So the 1,260 years of Daniel's prophecy, okay? So compressed into 44 words, the long story of the workings of the papacy is thus told by the angel who interpreted Daniel's vision of the little horn. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change the times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time, times, and dividing time. Daniel 7:25. Okay, and Daniel received this vision around 530 BC, 530 BC, okay? I'm not sure the exact date, but it's around there. But the spirit of this apostasy was abroad in apostolic days. The mystery of iniquity doth already work, said the apostle Paul in 2 Thessalonians 2:7, like I said earlier, that the Roman Catholic, from the Rome would come this little horn, and that's the one of the first fulfillments of that prophecy. Keep in mind, most prophecies fulfill themselves twice in the Bible, based on the testimony of two principle. But the testimony of two will give you the truth. And this power is to continue to work until the end, when it will be destroyed by the brightness of the coming. Verse 8. So the papacy will be destroyed by Jesus Christ, second coming. And there will be one pope alive during that time, and that pope is living today. So this is why this is significant and important that we understand. So the 1,260 years happens after when the little horn rises. There are 3 out of 10 horns that are plucked out or removed from power. Okay, and the first one is the Vandals. The second one is the last one is the Ostrogoths, but another one was the Heruli of Italy. But according to the word of the angel to Daniel, there was to be a period in which, in a special sense, the papacy was to hold supremacy over the saints and the times and the laws of the Most High. So, and this 1,260 years was that time period from 538 AD to 1798 AD was that time of supremacy of the Roman Catholic papacy, when the Pope was allowed to overtly persecute and kill Christians who did not follow him, basically, but followed the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and his words in the Bible. Let me go next to page. They shall be given to his hand until at times, and dividing time. And here the scripture, the word time is used in the manner, means year. At the end of times, even years. Daniel 11:13. Therefore a time, 1 year, times 2 years, and a dividing time, half a year, means 3.5 years. The same period is mentioned twice in the 12th chapter of Revelation, verse 14, as a time times and a half a time, and again in verse 6 as 1,203 days. Okay, so but in the symbolic representation of time in prophecy, in Bible prophecy, a day stands for a year. So see Ezekiel 4:5-6 and other scriptures. Thus the prophecy foretold a long period of 1,260 years, during which the papal supremacy would continue. Now we may ask, when was this supremacy to begin? What would mark the rise of the papacy to acknowledge supremacy? And what events mark the ending of 1,260 years? Okay, so the pivotal point in history. The answer of history to the voice of prophecy is clear. 6th century was a pivotal period in the history of the world. The bishops of Rome had been asserting the claims of that seat, or see, above all others. Justinian was emperor of the East, of the East. So Justinian being the emperor of the Eastern Empire, and the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, being in charge of the Western Empire. Of Justinian and his time, Bury says, he may be likened to a colossal Janus bestriding the way of passage between the ancient and medieval worlds. Janus was the Roman god of beginnings, so that's why January comes from this name Janus. So you keep in mind that his military achievements decided the course of the history of Italy and affected the development of Western Europe. Okay, and his ecclesiastical authority influenced the distant future of Christendom. History of Later Roman Empire, Volume 1, pages 351 to 353. All right, so basically during this time period would be established the 1,260 years of papal supremacy. Okay. Another quote here of this turning point in world's history: the changes of centuries pass in rapid succession before the eyes of one generation. Greece under the Romans, page 231. But here we find the papacy lifted definitely into acknowledged supremacy. Imperial Rome had already left its ancient seat to the papacy, and the imperial throne being no longer maintained at Rome, the Bishop of Rome was left the chief figure in the ancient seat of the Caesars. Okay, so beforehand, before the Pope, the Caesars were in control, and when there came a time and point when Constantine gave power to the Bishop of Rome in terms of possessions of the land of Rome. Okay, but the prophecy of Revelation 13:2 had said that the relation of the old imperial power to the papacy, the dragon not only represents imperial Rome but also represents Satan. Gave him his power, his seat, and his great authority. The seat was given, and now imperial Rome was to give to papal Rome the definite recognition of its supreme power and great authority. Okay, so let's move on here. So here the great authority had been recognized, but at this time heretical Arian powers compassed the papal seat about. The Arian Vandals were persecuting Catholics in Africa, Corsica and Sardinia, and an Arian Gothic king ruled Italy from Ravenna, his capital. Okay, the imperial arms, however, were 133. Were at the service of Orthodoxy. In 533 to 534, Justinian's famous general Belisarius uprooted the Vandals. So that's one of the three roots that were the horns that were uprooted. The war for the faith and the empire was carried into Italy also against the Arian Goths. In 536, Belisarius, unopposed, entered Rome at the invitation of the Pope, but the next year the Goths rallied all their forces to retake the city. It was a crisis in the struggle for Italy. If a single post had given way, says Gibbon, the Romans and Rome itself were irrevocably lost. Okay, the Goths withdrew, defeated in 538, and this defeat, says Hodgkin, dug the grave of the Gothic monarchy in Italy. Okay, and though the conflict went on for four years before the Goths were rooted up, this defeat of 538 was a crucial hour in the history. And when the conquest of Rome by Belisarius, the history of the ancient city may be considered as terminating, and with his defense against the Wittiges, 538 commences the history of the Middle Ages. Okay, so the history of the Middle Ages was the history in which the Pope was in charge of Rome. Okay, and not only Rome but of the Western world. And so for 538 AD, you add 538 AD plus 1,260 years of papal supremacy. So therefore the supremacy will last up until 1798. And in 1798, from 1798, the church experienced a wound to power. The Pope Pius VI was arrested, and the church and the Pope lost the political influence that it once enjoyed during the Middle Ages. And so now this woman, this church it used to be on water being the symbol of this whore. The Bible calls the Roman Catholic Church the whore, so don't be surprised. Said of here are peoples, multitudes, and nations and tongues. Okay, so but it goes to a time point where it's in the wilderness. Okay, so in the wilderness where there is no water or no people. Okay. So it loses the power and influence that it once had. Okay, but now this woman doesn't sit upon water as it once did, or was on the water, but now it sits on a scarlet-colored beast. Okay, so if the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet being the bishops, purple, being the bishops, and scarlet being the cardinals of the church, the scarlet-colored beast is a representative of the popes that from who were cardinals at one point, and then they became the heads of the church, and these heads of the church have full names of blasphemy. Remember, Pope Francis was called Holy Father. And from 1798 onwards, there were 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, and how do we show this? Sorry. So these 7 heads and 10 horns. So from 1798, from the time in which the papacy suffered its wound, from until today, there have been 7 names in which all the popes